One day, I opened the door to discover a crisis in one of my businesses. I didn't understand what was happening with the numbers until after it already hit the red line. And the reason I didn't understand, because I thought it wasn't my job to understand. Spent a lot of time listening to those voices in my head that said, you were to blame. You got a bit careless. You should have taken greater responsibility. But then the other voices on the other shoulder said, no, you were right to delegate. After all, what's the point of paying someone to do a job and then doing the job for them? Maybe the answer is somewhere in between those two extremes. It's okay to outsource the work. It's dangerous to outsource your understanding. I'm Barrie Seppings, founder and director of the Transfer Desk. And here are 4 areas of business every creative should work to understand if they want to stay in the business of being creative. Numbers are the language of business. And just like being a tourist in a foreign country, for a creative in a business, understanding a little bit of that language is going to make it a much more enjoyable experience for you. Now, I'm not suggesting for a moment that you need to go and learn how to do accounting, but understanding how a business makes money, and particularly how your role contributes to those numbers, is absolutely critical. I've seen plenty of very talented and very nice people removed from roles in businesses because they weren't attached to revenue. On the other hand, I've also seen plenty of dickheads who were very good at bringing in revenue or generating profit or both, and have had very long careers almost in spite of themselves. Understanding the numbers, even at a project level, which we'd call a budget, is critical if you want to make better creative decisions. If you're not sure how something is made, and yet you're part of making it, you've automatically put yourself at a creative disadvantage. Because execution is so important, the makers have the most influence over how your idea, your creative product is going to turn out. So take the time to understand the process. Go and do the press check at 4 a.m. Go on set whenever something's being filmed, spend time in the edit suite. Whichever part of that process that you don't understand, spend a little bit of time in it and see if you can get that understanding. There's also real value in understanding your client's process, how they make their product or service. So go do the factory tour, spend a day in their call center or a day behind the counter if it's retail. They'll give you an understanding that'll flow through to your creative process as well. You know, I've got a prediction that this kind of understanding of process is going to become a lot more valuable, particularly with the move to increased outsourcing, more remote working. We're working separately and in silos. Those of us who can understand how the whole machine works, even though we're working on our little piece, are going to become so much more important to producing great work. Myers-Briggs is often called astrology for business, and I can see that. But in my case, it helped me understand the difference between people who think on the outside of their heads. What if we get some footage from the truck and people who like to do their thinking like this? It's no exaggeration to say that understanding the difference literally saved my marriage, but that's a story for another time. Whether you look to classical psychology or behavioural economics, or even just sitting on a park bench observing people, put the time in to work out what motivates them, what's their driver. The same person is going to behave and respond very differently when they're walking down the beach or they're on holidays compared to when they are running late for a very important meeting. Understand the stakes, you have a much better shot of understanding the person. Now, this one's a little trickier. You probably won't find any YouTube tutorials or masterclass lessons on, well, you. But it is a very similar process to understanding people in general. You just have to be brave enough to swing the lens on yourself. Think about what drives you. What are your stakes? What's your motivation? Now, in my case, part of my motivation was about preserving my identity as a creative, whatever that means. And I thought that being a creative meant you didn't concern yourself with how the business was actually making money. Not only did I outsource my understanding, I outsourced my business destiny. Why are we here in the garage? Well, I like bikes, but I don't really understand how they work. And that can be a problem. They can be very dangerous if you don't understand what you're doing. Just like a business can be very dangerous if you don't understand how that one works. So these bikes are a metaphor and a constant reminder of the difference between outsourcing the work and outsourcing the understanding. Well, I'm pretty happy to outsource most of the major work on these bikes, and you have to if you want to keep them registered and safe. I became less satisfied with my understanding of what's happening between these two wheels. So I started doing something about it. I started to buy better quality tools, watching tutorials, reading the service manual. While I still make a lot of mistakes, I go very slowly and I'm never gonna call myself a mechanic. I'm starting to deepen my understanding of what happens when you're on the bike. Understanding the process of how the machine works is making me a better and safer rider. Understand the numbers, understand the process, understand the people, and I'll admit this last one's tricky, understand yourself. If you can build on your level of understanding of these different parts of being in a business as a creative person, you'll find yourself a lot more comfortable about outsourcing the work while retaining creative control. I'm Barrie Seppings, founder and director of The Transfer Desk. This is my garage, and that was my post about outsourcing the work, but never your understanding.